Where does evil come from? Where does bad things, where do they come from? Age-old questions, aren't they? Where does evil come from? Today, our readings are all about that question. First, we have the recounting of the garden, God placing the fruit in there for our ancestors to eat, all except for the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat that one. Likewise, Jesus is answering this question as well, and his answer may seem obvious to us. Well, evil comes from our heart, right? After all, it's we who choose to do good, or we who choose to do ill. I doubt that many of you sitting here today think that evil comes from something that we would necessarily eat or touch. It seems archaic, and it might be hard for us to really understand the gravity of what is being revealed to us today. It seems so obvious as people of faith. But it's not as obvious as you may think. In the ancient world, and I have studied many different ancient mythologies in my days, most people throughout human history were fatalistic. Meaning they did not believe that human beings were necessarily responsible for what was happening in the world. Most ancient people understood that what we see right in front of us and what we even think that we're doing on our own is really being manipulated by some unseen forces, by the will of the gods. And we could see that in so many of the ancient mythology stories. And even the gods themselves were not free. The gods themselves were beholden to the fates, to some unseen, unknown dictate that is controlling everything that is happening in the world around us. It was a radical revelation in the ancient world that we owe to our Jewish brothers and sisters and that we have inherited. This idea that we as human beings were created in the image and likeness of God. And with that comes freedom. We are ultimately responsible for the choices that we make. We are not puppets on a string. God gave us a radical freedom. And with that means that we are responsible for the actions that we take and the things that we do. Notice that the question of where does good and evil come from, it does not come from some foreign god or some power of chaos, but rather it comes from the free choice of man. Now we might think that this is obvious, but I look at the world today and I wonder how obvious it really is. After all, this radical freedom, that is the nobility of who we are. It comes from the fact that we are created in God's image and likeness. It is the nobility of humanity. But I fear that people have forgotten this. If the 19th century with the philosophers of Europe saw and presided over the death of God, it seems to me that the philosophy and ideas of today are presiding over the death of the nobility of man. After all, without God, whose image and likeness are we made after? What is good? What is evil? You see, the great paradox is that the atheists of the old days thought that by shrugging off God and being free of that old man in the sky would once liberate humanity. But the truth is that our freedom has always been integrally connected with who God is. Without God, there is no freedom of man. There is no ability to make a choice. There is no good. There is no evil. Just look at the way people speak today. Where does evil come from? We may not believe in the gods controlling everything, some unseen forces of deities in the sky. But listen to the way people talk. It doesn't matter what you say or what you actually do. It doesn't matter what kind of person you are. What matters is what group you belong to. What matters is what category we can put you in. That's what matters. The human person, the beauty and the dignity of each individual person is being snuffed out. Because after all, if we are to achieve progress, if we are to move forward, well, how do we go about it? Well, just listen to the utopian talk. First, you have to recognize that there are unseen forces, there are systems at play that are responsible for why you do what you do. There are unconscious things that you may not even know that are dictating why you do what you do. Little by little, we are stripping away our dignity. Little by little, we are stripping away the very thing that makes us heirs of the divine kingdom, that makes us free. By shrugging off responsibility, it's the government. It's the economic systems. It's the medical systems. It's the education systems. It's all of these forces that are not from ourselves. Those are the source of evil in the world. If only we could change all of the systems and all of the structures. If we could change the world and mold it into something new, well, then utopia would finally come into being. But ignores this basic fact, and the thing that our faith reveals to us is that the source of evil comes from the human heart. You could change all the systems in the world. You could build the perfect government, the perfect education system, the perfect everything. But if you have not changed the heart of man, you have changed nothing. God created paradise where there was no death, no sickness, no disease. He created utopia, and the first thing human beings did was seek to destroy it. You could change everything, but if you do not change yourself, you have changed nothing. That is the beauty of our revelation, and it is the dignity of who we are as human people. And it is the great message that we as people of faith have the gift to give to this world, where people struggle to understand their meaning and purpose in life. After all, what is meaning and what is purpose if you are not free? Sisters and brothers, we have dignity. We have freedom. God gives us the ability to make choices. And I fear that if we continue to go down this road of trying to build the utopia and always focusing on then it will always lead to giving your freedom to someone else. It should be no surprise to us that throughout history, anytime someone tries to create a perfect structure, tries to create a perfect system, it always goes and falls into authoritarianism. Because that's the only way you can contend with the freedom of man, is to control them, to put off limits and strictures, to hold them in ironclad grip, keep them from exercising their freedom. That's the only way. God, throughout history, has often been seen as oppressive. But God is the liberator. He is the freer. God gives us this radical freedom. He is not a tyrant. It is the world that seeks to control us. Sisters and brothers, when we come to this altar, we make a choice. We make a choice with our freedom to receive the message of God and say, Lord, you have presented us the way of light and the way of darkness. You have presented us with all of these good things, and you have also warned us of the ills that may come. I come here today and I choose you because I love you, because I am free to do so, because I am your son, because I am your daughter, and I belong to you. Sisters and brothers, this is the great gift of our faith. And it is one that the world so desperately longs to hear, that we have dignity, that we have freedom. And that also comes with the responsibility of our choices. To choose the path of life is a truly noble thing indeed. Sisters and brothers, let us come and make that choice to receive our loving Father once more. And let us truly live as examples to the world of what it means to be people free and holy in love.